Now then, you're welcome back. So, as mentioned there just before the ad break, it was not so long ago that the LIV Golf Tour was being declared dead in the water on the back of Phil Mickelson's interview with Alan Shipnuck, and a slew of big names declared their loyalty to the PGA Tour. But fast forward a couple of months, many of those big names have defected. There are 2 LIV Golfs under the belt. David Feherty, broadcasting legend, has joined the ranks now. And today it was confirmed, much rumoured for the last couple of days, but confirmed that Henrik Stenson, the European Ryder Cup captain, is defecting as well, and he has had his European captaincy removed. Very happy to say James Corrigan is with us of The Telegraph, who breaks more stories around LIV Golf really than any journalist worldwide. I guess you knew this was coming. Henrik Stenson, it seemed for much of this week there was a sense that there were still discussions ongoing between Stenson and the European Tour, but ultimately $40-odd million talked.
I think it was one of those that there were so many rumours there had to be something in it, but you sort of just couldn't believe it. And I think the DP World Tour even thought that they hadn't heard anything official from Stenson or anything even unofficial from Stenson until they chatted to him on yesterday. And I think he said that he would quite like to do both roles, and they thought, well, this is ridiculous. You've signed a contract saying you won't join LIV. That's impossible. And he said, well, I'm going then. And so we've got to this pretty amazing scenario that I certainly didn't envisage. I never thought it would get this far.
You do have a moment where you stop and remind yourself, the European Tour captain has just walked out here. I mean, it's hard to think of a period like this in golf. It's absolutely extraordinary.
Well, I think if you look at his Stenson's comments that when he took over in March, and, you've seen it was a dream come true. And if you listen to all of that and, we take these things at their word, and then, they get offered a few more quid. And it's a lot of money, fair enough. And we know that Henrik's had financial problems in the past. He was obviously part of that Ponzi scheme, Alan Stanford. And there have been other failed financial dealings, but apparently. So obviously the money was... the money... I want to say needed, but it was needed more than maybe we would think. That's, when Henrik signed, LIV looked like in a pretty ropey position, at the players. So all the great, all the top players had come forward and said, no, we're staying with the PGA Tour. These included obviously Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau. And so, as you said earlier on, and as McIlroy famously said, it's dead in the water. So, Stenson then thought, well, I made no point in hanging around. I'll jump now. It's a pretty lucrative role, the Ryder Cup. It's £4 million. That's the estimates of what you can earn in endorsements. And he joined, and then suddenly LIV hung around. They've done a few tournaments, and he realises the money won't be there if he does wait for 14 months, however long we've got to the Ryder Cup. So, it stinks, really, I think. I've got no problems with the likes of Westwood and Poulter taking the money, and I got a problem with Poulter taking the European Tour to court, but, I can then sort of understand what position they were in to take that money at that stage of the career, but you don't sign a contract and then renege. And that's not with something like the Ryder Cup. It's special to so many people, and it's been sullied now a bit, I think, and tainted. And, this is probably the lowest moment in the whole saga, in my opinion.
Stenson's statement today is quite lengthy, so I won't read it all. To give people a flavour of it, I mean, he does say initially that the LIV Golf concept has interested him for many years. Of course, he loves the concept of lots of money, and says he always played on multiple tours and hopes he can continue to do so. Says he fully intends on supporting multiple tours in any way I can. He did say, and this was extraordinary in some ways, he had made specific arrangements with LIV to ensure I could fulfill the obligations of captaincy. While I disagree with the European decision, for now, it's a decision I have to accept. So, are we to take this at face value that he thought that this new LIV Golf Tour, this existential threat to the European Tour, that he could defect and remain as captain, and he disagrees with this European decision? He can't honestly not see where the Europeans are coming from here.
The European Tour sort of expected him to say this, that that maybe he could do both after Ian Poulter won that injunction to appear in the Scottish Open. You've got to remember that Stenson's represented by the same agency, CM Management, as Poulter and indeed Lee Westwood and Sam Horsfield and Laurie Cantor. And so I think, they were thinking that, maybe there has been an injunction and there isn't the legal case. It's going to be sought out for months and months that, there might be an avenue. But, that was never going to be the case. The European Tour, DP World Tour could never sanction that. It would have been ridiculous. Imagine what the PGA Tour said. And just to have any self-respect, they couldn't. The man signed a contract. And in that statement, he doesn't mention that contract, makes no reference to it whatsoever, which to me is stunning. And he also references growing the game. Now, come on. There is nothing that grows the game more than the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup transcends golf more than any tournament, more than the Masters, the Open, anything. And, you can't, I think he's probably shrunk the game in a bit today because people won't look at the Ryder Cup same. And even if it's diluted by 1%, I think that's really, really sad. A sporting tragedy, I'd say.
There was one response to a statement by the tour player Eddie Pepperell, who's generally a pretty interesting type. And he said, Henrik, just be honest. It was a bucket load of cash and you couldn't resist it like the rest of the guys. We'll always love your game, especially those mid-irons, but what a disappointing thing to do. So how is this likely to be received? Because last week and at a dare previously, players were at pains to point out that this has not proved divisive amongst the golfing fraternity. They're all golfers. They're all just out there trying to make money. I don't know, is Stenson likely to receive a cold shoulder from fellow European players, or do you think that they understand, listen, we're all out here trying to make money, we're all, deep down, how many of us care all that much about Team Europe either? Like, this is just what we do.
Yeah, I think there is. I think there's something in that they look at themselves and each other as that horrible phrase, independent contractors. But I think this has taken it further, a few steps lower than. And I was talking to a player today, and he raised the possibility to me that Henrik had actually, one reason why he actually joined was because it became more valuable to LIV, and his price might have gone up by joining. Greg Norman has just shown that he can get to unreachable places now. He can get anywhere, and something I don't want to mean to be naff, but a hallowed position like the Ryder Cup. And he just said, we've got the financial clout to do it. And it's a massive show of power. And I think people will take this personally. I think fans will take it personally. And I think players will take it personally. I've no doubt, I've got to know Henrik. He's a fantastic chap. And, I've seen him crying at Ryder Cups. And there's no doubt what it meant to him. Right. He's even the best actor in the world, or there's no doubt what it meant to him. But it just shows what the power of money can do. He's... I don't know what his financial state was, and maybe there was legitimate reasons why he needs all this dosh. But right now, I just think, as Monty said, as Colin Montgomery said today, it's such a sad day for golf.
From a LIV Golf perspective, I mean, what a stirring the pot move this was. Like, to swoop in and take a Ryder Cup captain is just declaring all-out war, and it's a hell of a flex, and it's just designed to cause chaos. It's an incredibly aggressive move because Henrik Stenson does not add massively to the LIV Golf offering. He's 46 years of age. He's on the way down like so many of the players they've signed. So it's not like Stenson is going to be on all the posters and a star attraction. It's more... this is a dagger into the heart of golf establishment, and there's something like cunning and malicious and evil, and like you can imagine Greg Norman stroking a white cat as he designed this one.
Yeah, I think that's a great image. I wonder how much he paid for the white cat. I don't know. I'm not sure LIV has done itself many favours here. I really don't. I've always tried to give them a fair crack of the whip. I didn't. I went to the first event and I thought it was much better than other people said. I'm going to next week's event where the former President Donald Trump will turn up, and that's certain to be fun, especially with Henrik Stenson being, giving his real first press conference, and whoever, they got two more big players to be named tomorrow. I'm assured that one of those isn't Hideki Matsuyama, and that would have really been another big stroke for them. But, I'm not sure they've done themselves massive favours here, because whatever sympathies they might have grown within golf fans, and people just want to watch golf, and I can understand.
Oh, I think we just lost you, James. I'm not sure if you can hear me. It's like you've muted yourself there. Can you hear me? I think we've just lost you, James. I don't know if you can hear me. I can still see you chatting away. I don't know if you've muted yourself. Can you hear me?
No, I can still hear you, yeah.
You're back. Sorry, yes. We lost you. You're just making the point that golf fans might look at this and think, actually, Liv, I don't know if I want to support the evil empire here.
Yeah. I'm not sure if golf fans do look at it as an evil empire. They just want to watch golf, don't they? But if it's going to die, if it's going to affect the quality of the Ryder Cup, their famous week of every 2 years, then that might have a bit of backlash. I'll be interested to see what happens. And and people saying that the future of the Ryder Cup's at stake. I don't see that. There'll be a Ryder Cup next year, and it'll be brilliant. And whoever they appoint, and then the players will be there. I don't think the Europe Ryder Cup team will be as affected as the US Ryder Cup team, actually. But it's just, I think this is just a moment that is pretty stunning, and it's sort of people are lost for words a bit.
Who is likely to take over?
Well, I think Luke Donald was the one who ran Stenson the closest in the last, when the appointment was made in March. Paul Lawrie and Robert Carlson were obviously involved in that as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see Thomas Bjorn being stepped up, because I think they need a really strong character, somebody with unwavering loyalty. And I'm not saying the other three haven't, but just somebody who's known as an absolute European Tour fundamentalist to take this on and be strong and powerful and resilient and say, hey, there's going to be a great Ryder Cup. And he's a big mate of McIlroy, and I think McIlroy will play a part in it. I think he'll be consulted. I think it'd be daft if they didn't consult him, and I'm sure they will, because they've got to have the players on side. And I think they'll probably get a decision by the end of next week, and I really wouldn't be surprised if it was Thomas.
And then what happens when Greg Norman offers Thomas Bjorn 80 million?
I think the great thing about Thomas is that I'm sure he'd be tempted to take 80 million, but Thomas is playing in the seniors this week, the Senior Open. He's, that would be seen as I don't want to say this, because Thomas will probably come back at me and saying I'm not good enough to play there, but he's with the veterans now, so that would be so transparent. This might be slightly transparent, but that would be ridiculous transparent. And I don't think they do that, because it just would look stupid, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Although I can just imagine them cackling as they do it. And then they say, let's take Zach Johnson for good measure. Like, I just think they're stirring it, it's extraordinary.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they've got that. They have to watch money, and they just can't be. People say they've got unlimited resource, but I just can't believe that. There has to be some accountability in all this, surely.
Yeah, you would think so, but then let's just crank up a few more barrels of oil and off we go. You've genuinely broken more stories on this LIV Golf situation than any other journalist, I think, worldwide. So you'd have as good a feel for anybody as to where this is going. Say the medium term, which we can call the remaining, 6 LIV Golf events this year. Are you anticipating more and more big names to go? Obviously the LIV Golf, the crunch issue for them is to have world ranking points attributed to their events, and then really all bets are off. Obviously the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour are trying to stem the flow in whatever way they can. So broadly speaking, how do you see the next number of months playing out, James?
I think there'll probably be as many as maybe 6, maybe 8 more signings, but that'll be it for the year. I think they probably already made those signings, and they'll just some players might want to play in the President's Cup. Some players will definitely want to play in the FedEx Cup. That's got an $18 million first prize, which seems a bit ironic now. But it's going to get legal next year, I would say, because the World Golf Ranking Points they've got, just the way that their constitution works, their technical board has to look at it, and they say you have to prove yourself over a year or so many years. The Korean Tour took 3 years to get World Ranking Points, so they could point to that, and they had, they fulfilled every criteria. So I don't know. I think that'll probably be the big legal fight, and until then, I imagine the DP World Tour want to stay out of court. I imagine we'll still see players playing on the tour like Poulter and Westwood, and I'm sure we'll see them at Wentworth. We might even get a few Americans there. People like Patrick Reed and players who are affiliated to the tour, and Stenson and that. So I think it's going to be quite an unusual next few months, and this is not going to be settled until years and years. Maybe not settled until there's a compromise reached, or until we reach the stage where there's two parallel tours. I could definitely see that as a very feasible scenario now.
So look, I know a number of the bigger players do have major exemptions to some degree or other, and some of those are close to running out. I just find it staggering that several of these big names, like Patrick Reed, won in 18, so his exemption is going to be up relatively soon for the other majors.
Next year.
Next year. Like, so I don't even know if you can have world ranking points for a 54-hole event with no cut. For instance, Ernie Els was like, no one's taking this seriously from a golfing perspective. Just today, he gave an interview. But I find it staggering that a lot of these big name players are cashing in their major opportunities.
Yeah, well, I think they've been convinced that it will be sorted out.
Yes,
and they can also. I think that one route to world ranking points that hasn't really figured highly enough is the Asian Tour and their international series. They can play these events, and if you put if all the boys there decide to play, and Paul Casey mentioned this at the Open last week, they'd have a pretty good strength of field. So it's not all, there is an avenue to play on the Asian Tour, and they can't deny the Asian Tour world ranking points. They just can't, and you could see that their strength of field would be better than the DP World strength of field if all of the players decided to play. So, there are still routes, but, they've been convinced by Norman that the lawyers will sort this out for them.
Yeah, I presume so. But like even the Asian Tour thing, so like they're going to play 8 LIV Golf events this year. That would be 14 next year. And then 10, 12 Asian events to get enough ranking points to at least make majors, and then the 4 majors. All these players who want to play less golf are going to end up playing 35 events a year.
I think players like Westwood and Poulter and probably even Stenson. Stenson's obviously can play in the Open, keep playing in the Open, but I think they are resigned, not to playing in majors again. I think they've looked at the money and thought, well, this is going to set me up with my generational wealth, as they call it. So I'm not sure they're too bothered about that. They would never admit that, because they're sort of pro competitors. But I think when you're looking at some of the younger players like a Taylor Gooch or someone like that, they've sort of been convinced. They must have been convinced, and Bryson DeChambeau must have been convinced that, hey, you'll still be able to play in the big events. It doesn't make any sense otherwise.
No, it sure doesn't. Thank you so much for the time. It's great to get your thoughts on all this. James Corrigan of Telegraph with us here live and off the ball. Thanks very much, James.
Thank you, Joe.